get going. We'll just give people a couple more minutes to join. What we would ask is that all people who are here make sure that they are on mute. If you could do that, please. And we will have an opportunity throughout the presentation that if you have questions, that if you just throw them into the chat, and we will answer questions for that.
Okay, we're sitting at 60 now.
And as we're just kind of getting 60, okay. And as we're just getting ready, there's a couple of opportunities for families who maybe are new to Zoom. That at the top left-hand, or sorry, top right-hand corner, there's a view component, so you can choose a speaker or gallery depending on who's speaking. We are going to use a PowerPoint presentation, and we are going to record the presentation tonight so that we will post it on our website, and we will also post the PowerPoint, so people do not need to take notes if they don't wish. So we'll give, we're 6:02, so let's roll. Let me just, again, want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank Ms. McIntosh for organizing it. She's the vice principal. As in my screen, she's in the top left. I'm not sure where everybody else is. And then we have Mr. Randhawa here, who is one of our counselors. So again, he can help support you in any of the questions that you have and support us as we go through this. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And I was going to do a big shout out to somebody I used to work for before who's bringing their child to SANS, but I won't. I gave her a message directly. So again, thank you for coming tonight. We know it's a little weird and a little odd in this COVID world. Mr. Randhawa has, let me tell you, he usually does these presentations and he has an amazing, I'm not going to call it a dog and pony show, but it is highly entertaining. And he's entrusted me to take on this presentation tonight. I'm not nearly as entertaining, but we will try our best to make it humorous as we can. So again, welcome tonight. So let me just fire up. I'm going to share a screen with everybody, which is the presentation for this evening. I just got to figure out how to make it work. Okay, here's our slideshow. Now, one of the things I had a difficulty with the slideshow, I chose this as a template, but it has a red color to it. And I couldn't figure out how to change that to green or blue because red is not SANS color. That's Burnsview and some other schools, but it is certainly not SANS. We are a green and blue school. Those are our school colors. So again, want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This is the grade 7 or grade 7s to 8 meeting. So I've asked if I'm going to stop periodically and say, hey, does anybody have any questions? And then if you type them into the chat, Ms. McIntosh is going to monitor the chat. And then we can answer things kind of as we go. So we're not going to kind of go through all of this and then wait to the bitter end. So we're going to do that. So first thing I would like to do is, again, welcome everybody, but then, okay, I'm going to figure out how to make this work myself. Oh, there we go. So we'll start with our land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Tsawwassen and Musqueam First Nations and all the Hunkaminam speaking people who have been stewards of this land since time immemorial, and on whose land we live, learn, and play. I'd also like to offer my respects to all the elders who have gone before us and to all the Canadians who are on the journey of reconciliation. So here's some information for parents. We have 2 counselors, Mr. Randhawa, who's here tonight, and Ms. McPhedran. So those are the 2 counselors we have at SANS. Now, what SANS does a little differently than other high schools is our counselors are not grade specific, nor are they alphabetical specific. So they take kind of all comers from a variety of different grades, from a variety of different alphabets. And That also means that when students come down and they're looking for some assistance, it doesn't matter who they see, that they're going to get taken care of to certainly the best of our ability. So that's kind of how we organize our counselors. And as the administration, my name is Mark Robinson, I'm the principal, and we have Joanna McIntosh, which I introduced earlier. She is our vice principal. And our website I've included there, sandsecondary.ca or sa.deltasd.bc.ca. That's another way to get to our website for a bunch of information. What I didn't do is, one of the other things we do about communicating with families is, I don't think I included a slide on here, is we also use a school app to communicate as much as possible using that as well. And also we tweet some things out. So maybe towards the end, I might add some of that information. So who attends SANS? That's kind of the big question. It's usually the burning question right at the beginning of these presentations is, who gets to come as a grade 8 to SANS? Well, we start off with taking anybody who's from Brook or Gray Elementary, regardless of where they live, whether or not they live in our catchment, don't live in our catchment, live in Surrey, live in Vancouver, wherever, we automatically get those students assigned to us. So again, if you're already in Brook, if you're already in elementary, you're coming to us right away, regardless of where you live. We kind of then get to the next area. So we have other people who live in Delta, who live in our catchment, but don't go to Delta school. So that's something other than Brook and Gray. So that could be Richardson, that could be McCloskey, or something, Devon Gardens, could be something like that. And so they should come to us, but traditionally, because you go from your catchment school to the high school that feeds that, if you go to McCloskey or you go to Richardson, you're not going to be pointed toward us. So one of the key things is you need to make sure that your elementary offices know that you want to attend SANS. You live in the SANS catchment, and that is where you want to go to school. And if you don't want to come to SANS and you go to Richardson and you want to go to North Delta, then you just leave it as it is and you'll get siphoned off to North Delta. Then we also have another group of people who live in our catchment but don't attend a Delta school, typically Immaculate Conception or some other school that they're finishing. They've just moved into our catchment, but they're going to a school in Surrey. So one of the key things you need to do here is you need to fill out a registration, and that starts on February 1st. So those are all people who live in our catchments. We have to give priority to people, one, who go to one of our feeder schools, or two, live in our catchment. So we need to create spaces for those students. Okay, so that's February 1st, the deadline for the things. Now we have some other people who would like to come to SANS and being a student there. And those are students who are either non-catchment or non-district, and they need to fill out an application. So there's a real distinct difference between registration, which means you live in our catchment, and application, which means you don't live in our catchment, but you want to come to school in Delta or at SANS. So on February the 1st, there's a link there as well. There's some stuff on our website about how to fill out the non-catchment or non-district forms. And one of the things that's going to be a little different this year for everybody is there is no standing in line. There is no coming to school on the first day and filling out that information. Everything this year is online, whether or not you're registering or whether or not you're applying. Everything is done completely online. And what I would say to parents is cross your fingers that the system works and that it doesn't get bogged down. But there's probably a significant chance, because that's the experience we've had in the last number of years, is that the system crashes. So what I would suggest you do is you just keep at it. Keep hitting refresh, keep going to the website. If you are a registrant, don't worry about it so much, because if you live in our catchment, you're going to get in. It's the other ones, the non-catchment, non-district, that are time-stamped. So I'll say this, the non-catchment families get placed before the non-district families. But traditionally in the last number of years, we haven't taken a lot of non-catchment and very few non-district students. We typically fill ourselves up with students who live within our catchments. We don't exclusively do that. We have taken some other students who are non-catchment and possibly a non-district, but there's not very many of them that we take. But again, February 1st is the application. So I am just gonna, if anybody has any questions that they want to ask, why don't you throw that in the chat right now, and we'll just kind of pause for a moment.
Okay, we have a question about a Brook Elementary School who is from out of district.
Doesn't matter. So to the parent who said that, if you go to Brook right now, and if you attend Brook or Gray right now, you will automatically get assigned to us, regardless of whether or not you live in our catchment, in our district, or out of our district. They will place you there automatically.
Any more questions? Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no more questions coming up. I think you can continue.
Okay, I've actually found the chat, so I'll just, again, if anything does come up, again, we will pause periodically to allow people to answer some questions. Okay, so next up is, I hope everybody can see the slide. I didn't bother to ask anybody if it's being shared or not. Okay, here we go. How many, so a lot of this is kind of, thank you, Tara, for telling me that, or Tara. So a lot of this thing is normally Mr. Randall would ask somebody like, so how many people, this is their first time at grade 8? And so some of this presentation is about how to expose parents to what grade 8 looks like when they've never had a student in grade 8 before. So we're going to kind of talk a bit about that. So how many courses do I need to take in grade 8? That's the first one. And the bracket here I wrote, in high school, the subject is now called a course. So in elementary school, the subject was math and PE and socials and science, whereas we actually call them courses. So if we have somebody, Ms. McIntosh, if you could mute everybody.
I am about to.
We appreciate it.
There we go. Oh, that included you.
Okay, here we go. So again, if we could ask people if they could please remain muted, that would be great. So you're going to take a total of 8 classes or 8 courses over the course of the year. Whereas in elementary school, it might have been fewer or might have been more, but we take 8 classes or 8 courses over the year. Okay, so what courses do you need? So first thing is you need English, or in grade 7 elementary schools, they call it language arts. We call it English. You need social studies, you need science, you need a math, you need a PE, physical health and education, or PE, and it's co-ed in grade 8. You don't need, but typically kids take a second language, which is typically French for us, because we don't offer anything else at grade 8. And if some of those students who've had support blocks in the past, LST, GradQuest, or things like that, we typically take out the second language so that the other electives that students can take, and so they drop the second language. Now, it's not always the case, but it's typically the case. But we can make some adjustments for what parents and students want. So the next thing about information about second language is French 8. Typically kids move on from, they start with French 8 and they take French 9, they take French 10, French 11, and sometimes they go on to French 12. Or if they want to stay with the language, but yeah, maybe French isn't the thing they want to see, we offer Spanish. So we start Spanish in grade 9, and then we offer 10, 11, 12, but we also offer an opportunity at grade 10 for students maybe not to take a language in grade 9, but to take an introductory to Spanish in grade 11, or introductory to Spanish grade 11 course, but they take it in grade 10 with kind of the trajectory that they would then take Spanish 11 in grade 11, and then possibly go into Spanish 12 in grade 12. Now they don't have to take Intro Spanish 11 in grade 10, they could take it in grade 11. So there is another avenue for students who would like to take another language, even if they don't take it in grade 8. So we want to keep our options open. As I say, there's some university programs require language at grade 11 level, but others don't. So what about the other stuff, the fun stuff? So these are the courses that are not required and are considered typically non-academic, and they're called electives. Again, and each student at grade 8 gets typically 2 out of 8 electives. So 2 of the blocks are electives. So let me just talk briefly about those. So the electives are offered in all subject areas that run all year long. So there's a couple of electives. One is band, and the other is called Sands Soccer School, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later on. And they are an all year long class. And then the other ones we offer they're kind of sets because they're in groups. So we have ADST, which is typically woodwork, drafting, foods, and sewing. And then we also have the fine art offering, which is art, drama, and music. So students who are enrolled typically in the bottom 2 ones, the set areas, they will get to experience wood, drafting, foods, and sewing through the length of the course. But they will also, and then the other side, they will get to experience art, drama, and music. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a minute to see if anybody's got any questions they want to ask. So again, if you could please type them into the chat, I will answer them as they come up. And if I don't know the answer, I will let Mr. Rendawa or Ms. McIntosh answer them for you. Okay, no questions. We'll continue on.
No. Oh. We've got no question. No computers course. We start computers at grade 9 after the rotations are done.
And we don't do robotics. Robotics we have as a club.
Yeah.
But we don't offer it as a course.
There's some robotics that are tied into electronics 9. It's an electronics robotics. They're doing some Arduino stuff this year. But not like the Lego set robotics, but we have offered it as a course. And Michelle also says, I missed the first 5 minutes. Will you be able to email a copy of this slideshow? We're putting it on our website. We're recording right now for everyone who's just joined us, and we will be putting this on.
Ms. McIntosh, did you hit record?
Yes.
Because I forgot to hit record.
Oh, I've hit record.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I apologize, I'm jumping ahead with Sans be running course. We're going to get to that a little bit later on, T. So if you could just hold on to that. Okay, AST and fine arts are, yes, 1-year courses. So typically you take 6 courses. For students, we'll take 6 courses. Oops, I just went forward. I want to go back. They'll take 6 courses and then they'll take 2 electives. And electives typically for most grade 8s are ADST and fine arts. And they will last the whole year. So art, you would have, in a linear program, you would have term 1 for art, term 2 for drama, term 2, 3 for music. And wood, you would kind of, a quarter of the way a year, you would switch from wood to drafting, and then a quarter from foods to sewing. So you have all of those experiences. I mean, basically the idea behind these sets is to kind of give students a flavor of what electives they could take next year in grade 9 or in grade 10. So it just kind of gives that kind of smattering of how things would work. Kaylin, we'll get to your question in just a minute. How will things be selected? Okay, so if nothing else, I'll move on. Okay, so learning support classes, we do have a number of students who come to SANS in grade 8 who have learning support blocks or GradQuest or supportive learning. So typically if those students who are enrolled in that, we will be giving them a block of support again next year. We will also be having conversations with their grade 7 teachers to confirm that those blocks are needed for those students, and we will go on. And typically a block of learning support or GradQuest or supportive learning will replace an elective. As I said earlier, it can reduce an elective, or it can go into it can go into the case of us taking out a language. So it's one of those things that we will talk to you about. We also offer ELL supports. We have strategies classes, and we also have language development. So for students who have ELL support in their elementary schools or learning supports in their elementary schools, we will continue those supports when they get to high school. Sands Soccer School. So this is something we've, with COVID, last year all the academies were canceled. And this year, most of the academies have been canceled again. So what we decided to do with help from Mr. Suarez, who is the soccer coach for the academies, is to develop a kind of a sand soccer school on our own. It's going to be a one block soccer. It's open to grade 8 to 10 students only. So, and we're looking for people who attend SANS only. We're not looking to develop this for students outside of SANS, at least not in the first year. We're also looking for students to be taking this as their 9th course, especially if we're going to be in a quarter system, which means we'll have block A and B for regular classes, and they will take the soccer school in the afternoon, 2 days a week. Or if we're in a semester kind of system, they'll take it for the whole semester, so it'll be 4 days a week. And if we are in a linear system, we're looking to be replacing it as one of the electives that's in the timetable as well. So because we're not exactly sure what kind of a system we're going to be in yet, that is a little bit up in the air. This sand soccer school will be a fee. There will be a fee to participate. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $550 a year. And that money is to pay for one of the coaches. It's not to pay for the teachers, it's to pay for one of the outside coaches who comes into the program. It's the same coach that we use for the academy. So it's a matter of hiring him again, and he's amazing. One of the advantages for us to do the soccer school is that the cost of the soccer schools, as I said, is about $550, which is about a quarter the cost of an academy because there's no baseball. Oh, sorry, there's no busing. We're not running baseball this year as an academy because the big thing about academies that they're worried about is the transportation and how are students going to come from a variety of schools to SANS when we can't do that in a busing situation. Whereas SANS Soccer School and SANS Academy was primarily filled with SANS students. There were some students from outside of SANS, but a lot of the students were from SANS. Where the Baseball Academy, they were primarily from other places. So the Baseball Academy is on pause for another year, but there is the possibility of it running in 2 years' time. Students who are interested in the SANS Soccer School will still required to take a PE classes. So I talked about a couple of the academies that are going to run, but they are typically ones who are in Ladner at Delta Manor Education Center, and the parents and students need to make their own arrangements on how to get there. So there will be no busing. So lacrosse is there, the Film Academy is there, film production and visual effects. Family wanting to, so we'll get onto the quarter schedule. We're not really sure what the schedule is going to look like for next year. Part of that is going to relate to see how things go with COVID and whether or not we're going to need to be in a cohort situation. So we're waiting to see. How do I register for LAC? So that's lacrosse. You contact, if you go to the Delta School District website and type and go to look at the academies, there's an application program for the lacrosse for that. So Galaxy A5, you need to do nothing, just show up. We will take care of you. Yes, if you want to take SANS Soccer, you are going to have to register with us. We will put out an application process probably mid-February, and we will send that out to all families, plus we'll also have it on our website. Okay, next up, what does an average timetable look like for a student? Typically, you're getting an English 8, Science 8, Socials 8, Math 8, French 8, or what could be a support block. PE8, ADST, so that's that rotation, and then the fine arts rotation. And that is a typical timetable. It's not an exact timetable for everybody. Everybody has a slightly different timetable to meet their needs. Like some kids may want to take band, so that would go in instead of ADST or fine arts. Some kids may want to do the soccer academy, so that would replace an ADST or fine arts. Some students may need an LST block, or Grad Quest, and that might replace the French 8 or the ADST in the Fine Arts. So everything works slightly different for everybody. Okay, how do you pick your courses? Somebody asked this earlier. And so here it is. You don't really. In grade 8, because there are so few choices, everybody's got to take basically the 6 courses and the ADC. So basically the 8 courses we select for you. But we do send home some messaging. And we typically do that in April, I think. Is that right, Ms. McIntosh?
That's about right, yep.
We send home in April to see, is there something else that you'd like to take? Do you want to take band? Do you want to take soccer school? Do you want to come out of LST? Or sorry, do you want to go into LST and drop one of the other courses? So there is some communication between us and you, typically via email, to ask you some of those specific questions. We default to everybody having that typical schedule, just so. That's the default. And what we do is we tweak things in February, and we also do, we start talking to the grade 7 teachers in kind of the end of April, start of May, about any specific needs that your student might have, any challenges they may have, areas of excelling where they excel, and we get to know a bit more about them from your grade 7 teachers. So there is the typical way to do things. Those are the courses, and we kind of select it for you, but we do give you an opportunity to give us some input. And that input would typically go either to Ms. McIntosh or to one of the counselors, like Mr. Randall. So what else happens at SANS besides schoolwork? So there's a bunch of different things that SANS is involved in, and there's something for everyone. So we offer a variety of athletics at SANS. We offer swimming, there's a swimming team, there's volleyball, basketball, badminton, soccer, track and field, ultimate. For those who don't know what ultimate is, ultimate players are not gonna like me. It's kind of like Frisbee soccer. It's a little more into it than that. We've had curling, we've had a lot of success with curling, and we've also done some intramural sports over the years. So there's a variety of things that kids can get involved in and try out and participate in, and athletics is one of those things. The other kinds of things, we have student council. Grade 8s are always welcome to student council. We want kids to get involved. There's a variety of things they do. They plan dances, they do buddy days, they do special fundraisers, they do fun days or spirit weeks. They do Valentine's things, and you know what, we try to get as many kids involved in that as possible. And there definitely is a place for grade 8s to get involved. We also have a variety of clubs at SANS. We have the Ethics Club, the Environmental Club, the GSA. HOSA is a brand new one that started this year for those students who are interested in a career in healthcare. Model UN, we've had gaming clubs. There's a whole variety of different ways to get involved. And one of the key things that we want kids to, as it says there in red, you want a club, but it doesn't exist, then start one. Find a teacher to sponsor it or some adult who works in the building to sponsor it. And then get approval from student council or the administration, and we go forward with that. And we're constantly looking for new clubs. Every year there's always something new starting, and there's something typically falling off. But where there's an interest from a variety of students, we're encouraging people to get involved and form clubs. Welcome to high school. So what do we do about welcoming kids in grade 8 or from grade 7 to grade 8? Things that we have done in the past, we're hoping we will be able to do again in in June and September. But again, COVID will kind of dictate a bunch of these. Like we have school tours. Last year we had a couple of videos that went out. We've done in the past a beginning of the year barbecue, where we did that in August, where we had families and we opened the school up and we fed people hamburgers and hot dogs and veggie burgers and things like that. We've had the school open for exploration, typically in the morning. We've had a grade 8 retreat in the past. We've had a grade 8 dance. Ms. McIntosh and I will come knock on your door to welcome you to SANS. We typically do that in August. Last year we did it as a virtual thing. And we also involve some grade 10 to 12 mentors who help out with lockers, finding you or following you around the school, checking in with you, see how you're doing, and also helping with the retreat. So there's a lot of things that we try to do to make and to welcome you into grade 8 here at SANS. So I'm going to pause there for a minute because I'm sure people got some burning questions they want to ask. And Mr. Rendell, if you want to answer anything. So somebody wants to build lockers. So we don't have lockers this year. Again, COVID is kind of putting a wrench in a whole variety of different things. So again, we won't know about lockers until we get closer to the start of the school year. We would hope we'd be able to have lockers, but if we were in a COVID situation like we were this year, we're not going to be using lockers. Mr. Rendell thinks he should get a raise. Yeah, I wouldn't say no to that. I don't have the ability to give him a raise. He does a lot of really good work. Okay, so we'll move on from welcome to high school. Oh, so there was the last question. I got on to questions. So that's the end of the presentation. I know it's short and fast. I know some of you want to get to watch the hockey game tonight that started about 3 or 4 minutes ago. Hopefully the Canucks can win 2 in a row against Montreal. But you know, if people want to ask questions, I think an important way to do that is don't hesitate to phone the school. Ask for myself or Miss McIntosh or one of the counselors and say, hey, can we get some more information? It could be sending us an email. So if we go onto the first page, we give our emails there. Let me just escape that. Okay, I'm not sure what happened to that PowerPoint.
Mr. Robinson, can I just add something?
Yeah, you go.
I just want to say to the parents out there, you know, kids going into grade 8 can be a big anxiety event. And it would be helpful for the counselors and the administration to know if there are certain things we need to know about your child. So whatever you can tell us, or, you know, if something's happening, they're not getting along with somebody, whatever you can tell us would be fantastic. And that can help us, you know, in a variety of ways. So don't be afraid to call us, like Mr. Robinson said. And we just want them to have a good high school experience.
And I would add that the more we know about them, and typically that's why we go to, we do the articulation with the elementary schools, is the grade 7 teachers, possibly the LST teachers, the counselors, the administration, provide us with a bunch of information about your student, so that, you know, we can, oh, I just realized I had a typo there, so that we can make the school year as good as it can be for students. So Drew asked the question, is SANS currently running on 2 terms? So we are in a quarter system right now. So that means typically in a year you have 8 classes in a linear system, which is typical for us. So what we've done this year is 4 times a year we switch. So in quarter 1, which is about 9 weeks, they take 2 courses and they focus on just 2 courses. And then in quarter 2, which is again about 9 weeks, they take 2 more courses. And then quarter 3, which we're about to move into start of February, they'll move to 2 other courses. And then towards the end of April, they'll take another 2 courses. Normally for us, we are in a linear system, so that means they take 8 courses over the course of the whole year. So they would take 4 courses on day 1 and 4 courses on day 2. And we would alternate those days all the way throughout the year. Whereas at North Delta Secondary in Delview, they're in a semestered system, typically in a year, where they take 4 courses for half the year, and then they take another different 4 courses for the other half of the year. So it's a little, what we're doing right now in the quarter system and where we may be next year is not typical for what SANS does. We're typically in a linear system that runs the whole year long. Ravina got a question. So you ask about, you just, Ravina, if you just contact the office, phone the office and tell them that you live in the SANS catchment, and they'll confirm that based on your address that they have at school, and they will send that information off to the school board, and the school board will switch you to SANS. Galaxy asked if we have any online courses. No, we'd like students as much as possible to take face-to-face courses with us at the school, although there are options as this year. I would imagine next year there'll probably continue to be a home quest option for taking some courses who are not taking courses in a way that they're not attending SANS.
In the quarter system, we tried really hard to minimize any hybrid classes for our grade 8, 9s and grade 8, 9s and 10s. And all grade 8s should be in full face-to-face classes.
Is there a reason for the linear semester? I think it's, Tara, it's more of a historical perspective. That North Delta Secondary has been semester for, let's say 40 or 50 years, whereas the elementary, or sorry, the junior highs at that time were all linear schools, and they've stayed that way. There's advantages to linear and there's advantages to semesters. So I can't say which one is better or which one is worse. I think it depends on the needs of the students and what people's experiences are. So where we will be next year because of COVID is, who knows. So Kaylin, we expect that we will have, as Ms. McIntosh says, all our grade 8s, 9s, and 10s are face-to-face. Most of our grade 11s and 12s are face-to-face, but there are some hybrid courses. But primarily, we've done a really, really good job. Ms. McIntosh has done an amazing job of building a schedule where we've got so many people face-to-face. That's really good. So I envision us having possibly even more face-to-face learning next year.
With that, when we looked at face-to-face versus hybrids as well for the senior grades, we looked at what courses we felt could potentially be okay as a hybrid as well. So something like woodshop, for example, we didn't want to have as a hybrid course because you need specialized equipment for that. For some of the academics like math or physics, English, science, we kept all of those as face-to-face courses. Hybrid courses, that we created hybrid courses when we could no longer keep groups of students together fully face-to-face because there's just so many options in the higher grades of high school to keep that kids, the selection is just so great that we ran out of groups of kids taking the same courses essentially. And that's when we had to go into a hybrid system when kids would come out of their learning cohort and learn at a distance with a teacher. And when they do a hybrid, they're in the class, they're at the school typically for 2 of the face-to-face days, and then 2 days where they're doing hybrid learning. And the teacher either has something that they're working on, or they've posted something onto Google Classroom, or they're, you know, we know there's some places where they zoom in to the class. There's lots of different options. And with kids, they're attending 5 days a week. Our days are a little shorter right now. We've got our 2 blocks are 2 hours. So if the grade 8s currently they come for block A, that's a 2-hour block. They get a nutrition break, and they can do some schoolwork. They stay in their cohort and have their break, have a snack, socialize with their friends that are in that cohort. And then as a class, they move to their next class together. And then school for them ends, could end at 1 o'clock, but if they need more support, our teachers have flexible learning time that students can get more support. And that's also when our students who are in support programs access their support programs as well. I'll let
And
you go.
Ms. Bauer is asking how the information is shared. Ms. Bauer, if you can call me at the school, and any family can call me or Ms. McFedrin at the school and we can talk. Sometimes when we go to the elementary schools, we don't get the full story. And so if you have something pressing, that you should just call us. It's probably the best way.
Absolutely. Are there COVID restrictions right now in the SANS teams and clubs?
We have no teams. We are not running athletics. What we are running is we're having some training for some sports. We have basketball and volleyball going on right now. There are some strict COVID restrictions with that because they're typically multi-cohorted. So they have to wear their masks, they have to be a certain distance apart, they have to be healthy when they're coming. There's a whole list of things that the coaches need to put into place. And it's the same thing with clubs. One of the things with clubs that I've asked anybody who wants to run a club, that they need to get approval from me, and then they have to develop a plan for how to be safe, and then they need to be home. The idea was that they were also sent home with like permissions to parents, so that parents knew that they were part of a club. Because typically in school, the kids are in cohorts, and we know what that looks like. Whereas in clubs, they're from multi-cohorts, multi-grades. So we're trying to be as safe about that, but also trying to keep some of the typical things that we would have in schools running, although slightly different, but still having them being offered to students. How many grade 8s? We typically have somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 to 135 grade 8s.
I don't think it's gone above 135 while I've been at SANS.
Yeah. So we try to, one of the things we do is we typically take, once we figure out, as people start registering, we figure out how many students that we have, we figure out where we have some space as the time goes on. We also have to wait till inclusive learning places students with it at our school, because we have a variety of programs at our school. So we have a life skills program, we have a modified academic program, we have supportive learning, we have GradQuest, and we have LST. So sometimes, not LST, but GradQuest and the rest of the programs, sometimes we get students get placed with us from other schools that they typically wouldn't come to SANS. And so those are district placements. And so we need to make sure that we save some spaces for those students, because we may have their home school, or where they should be going to school, might not have the program that meets their needs. So we typically hold on to some space for that. And we also always hold on to space throughout the spring and through the summer, in case people move into our catchment. I think 2 years ago, and the cliche is, oh, well, we got to save space for the person who moves in right across the street. Well, 2 years ago, we had that person. They moved in midway through August, and they literally moved right across the street from them. And so we always want to make sure that we hold on to some space for them. So that's why we don't typically take a lot of out of catchment or non-catchment students right away, because we have to hold on to space for the other students. How different this year? I'm not sure what it's in reference to. If it's looking in reference to the number of students we're taking, we kind of have to wait to see what the grade 7s, who's coming to us, because we don't know that number yet.
I think in terms of school life, it's different in that kids, they're not hanging out in the hallways the same way. Excuse me, not hanging out in the hallways the same way. We're very particular about school entry and exiting. We open the doors for kids to come in at 8:20. We spray their hands with hand sanitizer as soon as they arrive. We've got a one-way system through the hallways So when we have all the students in the hallways together, they're all flowing like fish swimming up a stream in the same direction as they go. And there's no lockers. And I think a lot of the social part of school has changed a little bit with COVID. And then of course the quarter system. So courses themselves are moving along quicker, but at the same time, kids aren't taking 8 at a time. So there's benefits to that, but there's also, it's going quickly. So that covers a few other things.
Right. One of the things Ms. McIntosh developed last year is if you go to YouTube and type in Sands Secondary, we have a YouTube channel. In that YouTube channel is a video that she developed last June, which gave a virtual tour of the school. So if you want to, you and your student want to have a look at that, you can see what that looks like. So that if you've never been into Sands, that's a good way to have a look at what that looks like.
Maybe we could make a little.
Sorry.
Maybe we could make a page on our website for grade 8 information and put our slideshow there and put the YouTube, virtual tours there. So that's a one-stop shop for parents.
Okay. Okay, if you got any more questions, fire them at us. And if you get off this meeting and you say to yourself, oh, I wish I'd asked that.
Lockers.
Please don't hesitate to give us a call at school or shoot us an email. People ask, why can't there be lockers next year? And the problem with the lockers is they're touch points. And we are trying to reduce the number of touch points that students have in the building. So one of the things, when students go into classrooms, they sanitize their hand when they go in. When they're finished working at their desk, they sanitize their desk. When they leave the classroom, they're in a one-way hallway, as Ms. McIntosh said. They're all going in the same direction. They've got their masks on. When they get to the next class, they hand sanitize, they sit down at a sanitized desk. So we're trying to get rid of those touch points. And if we have lockers, there's hands all over lockers. We can't possibly clean all those lockers every day. And the other thing about lockers, as you will all remember when you were in school, people like to hang out with each other at each other's lockers. And so we're trying to eliminate the stopping and the congregating of students. We literally want them to come out of their class and move on to their next class, or come out of their class and out the closest exit and going off home. So we're really trying to keep that locked down. Okay, anybody else got questions? If not, I want to, on behalf of Mr. Rendell, or Ms. Rendell, is there anything you want to add?
Yes,
before we
I do want to
shut it
say
down?
something really quickly. It's killing me not to be doing this, but you and Ms. McIntosh have done an excellent job. But for the parents out there, we have the highly coveted Sands t-shirts that I feel we need to give away. So I'm going to ask one question, and the first 5 parents that can email Ms. McIntosh tomorrow will win the prize. Okay, so here's the question. Before Sands was built, what was this land used for? Okay, so tomorrow, send your answers in. The first 5 will win a nice t-shirt, and we'll make sure we get it to you. Okay, don't answer now.
Okay. Well done, Ms. Rendell. Okay, so
Well done.
What will it match? You know what? We might have something that we've got some really old athletic uniforms, I think, still kicking around. So there may be something that matches the 1996 one. What are the dates that the term changes for scheduling? So in a typical linear year, the term changes are November, end of November, start of March. In a typical year, so we would have 3 terms. Where right now we have 4 quarters instead, and the changes were start of November, start of February, towards the end of April, and then the end of the year. I hope that answers your question. And again, don't hesitate. You get off this and go, oh, I wish I'd asked that. Shoot us an email, give us a phone call. It's all good. We're here to help. We're here to make this transition as easy as possible. If this is your first child going to high school, it's a big step. It's a big mode of independence. They don't want mom and dad to be nearly as involved. But it can be a big scary place. And I will honestly tell you that not really seen anybody get stuff in the locker ever. Usually those kids who end up in the locker are ones who do it themselves. So our grade 12s and 10s and 11s are great mentors and great supports for the younger grades. That is certainly something that is very characteristic of SANS students.
And
I would
there's no-
definitely say that our older kids, I would definitely say our older students strive to take care of our younger students. It's definitely a cultural thing at SANS. Sorry, Mr. Randall.
Yeah.
I was just gonna
Absolutely.
say, tell your kids there's no second floor. The older kids like to prank the younger kids sometimes by saying, oh yeah, just go up the stairs, and they run around looking for stairs.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing this. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Now I can back see everybody's faces, whereas before I couldn't. Again, want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Again, any questions, don't hesitate to ask us or send us information. Somebody asked a question. Okay. Take care, everybody. Go Canucks, go. And by the way, if you don't know, we're the SANS Scorpions, and we have a mascot, and his name is Hank. So.
And he
that's
makes a
what I-
cameo. He makes a cameo in the virtual tour.
Yeah, so have a look at that video. Okay, everybody.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you,
Again,
everybody.
Don't hesitate to ask us any questions.